Joining me right now is Fox News senior strategic analyst, chairman of the Institute of the Study of War, General Jack Keane. General, it's great to see you this morning. Thanks very much for being here. We've talked so much about communist China and its surveillance programs. What are your thoughts on what we've been watching these last 2 weeks?
Well, certainly, I think it's unfortunate that Admiral Kirby, who I know pretty well, characterized this and comparing administrations in terms of what they're doing here. I mean, the reality is that this administration certainly had a significant penetration by a huge balloon carrying a very heavy payload, and that was tracked for a number of days before it reached Alaska. We made a policy decision not to shoot it down, right, not knowing what it was going to do, and certainly the fact that it sat over nuclear missile sites for a couple of days and traversed the entire United States. I think clearly the administration, if it had to do it over again, would likely have shot that down. And that is why I think it explains these other 3 balloons that have been shot down almost immediately, or at least within hours of detection. And yet they appear on the surface of it not to present a similar threat that those large balloons did. We should get out of the politics of this. This is a national security issue, and not comparing one administration to another. The fact is that after this large balloon penetrated the United States and stayed in the country, it was then that this administration, the Biden administration, decided to take a look further at what has been the history of fleet balloons. And they discovered that, yes, there have been previously 4 penetrations of the United States, 1 during the Biden administration and 3 during the Trump administration, none of them as consequential in terms of size or duration of the one that we experienced in the United States for a week. We shouldn't be pointing fingers. What we should be doing is getting to the bottom of this in terms of what is really happening. And I do think it is fair criticism that the president has not come forward. NORAD was formed in 1958 in the Eisenhower administration. And during all of that time, from Eisenhower to Biden, not one president has ever had to defend America's airspace except President Biden, because it was violated. I don't want to over-dramatize it. The American people were not about to be killed by this. But the fact is, no other president had to deal with it, and he should come forward. Standing next to him should be his Secretary of Defense and his Secretary of State, explaining to the American people what we know and what we don't know. And if we don't know everything, just tell the American people that. We can handle it.
That's right. Yeah, I totally agree. We're not hearing any answers, and it almost suggests that they're embarrassed. They know that, 4 balloons, 3 of which were shot down over the weekend, is making Biden look weak. The fact that the CCP thinks that they can do that. I want to get your take on what to do now, because, General, China has most favored nation status when it comes to trade. Is that a lever to pull? And how do you deal with other global leaders who are supporting the Chinese Communist Party, despite these provocations? I understand that this week the UK Foreign Office in the UK is going to host the CCP official in charge of Xinjiang, the Xinjiang province. Prime Minister Sunak apparently also soft on China. Foreign Secretary James Cleverly is also soft on China. And then you've got the president of Iran, Raisi, kicking off a 3-day trip to China today. He's expected to meet with Chinese leader Xi Jinping, General. What are you expecting from the Iran meeting? And what about the UK hosting the head of the Xinjiang province? Of course, that's where they do slave labor in China.
Yeah, I'm stunned by that. I didn't understand that was taking place. That revelation is extraordinary. I mean, this is one of the most unique experiences that's taken place in the world in terms of repression of millions of people. Over 1 to 2 million people are actually in concentration camps. Sterilization is taking place. Forced abortions. I mean, it's absolutely outrageous, reprehensible behavior that should be condemned worldwide, much less host the political leader of that province. Makes no sense. China is an adversarial nation to the United States, for sure. We're in an ideological struggle with this country over our values, to be sure, but also over our security. China wants to dominate the world geopolitically and certainly replace the United States. And we've got to step up with a comprehensive strategy to deal with them. That is the reality of it. With Iran, as you mentioned, Iran, it's not well known that Iran is suffering economically. They don't have the money to pay their proxies who are conducting wars in Syria, in Yemen, and certainly supporting their activities in Iraq as well. And as a result of that, they're going hat in hand with most members of their cabinet to China because they need assistance. And they are of a common ilk. They have a common enemy, and that is the United States of America, much as Russia does. And that's why Iran is providing Shahad drones to assist Russia. And Iran is providing fuel, oil, to China. China is helping to sustain Iran by buying that oil for sure. And by the way, China is completely dependent on the Middle East oils. 62% of it comes out of the Middle East. But yes, Iran has a relationship with China, and it's not surprising, mostly because of the United States is an adversary of both countries.
Yeah, really fascinating to watch this chess game. But General, obviously, these two have that common interest, and we'll find out what happens in this meeting. General, it's always a pleasure to see you. Thanks very much. We'll also keep a spotlight on what's going on in the UK with the head of that Xinjiang province expected there today. Jack Keane, always a pleasure to see you.